President Kennedy died because he threatened to destroy the CIA and end the shadow government's control over America. 60 years later, justice is finally coming. I'm Director James Morrison, and the evidence I'm presenting tonight will prove that the CIA killed JFK, why they did it, and how they've maintained power through murder and cover-up for 6 decades. What I'm about to reveal will finally answer the questions that have haunted America for 60 years. Who killed President Kennedy? Why was he murdered? And how has the truth been hidden for so long? Tonight, I'm presenting classified CIA documents, operational files, and insider testimony that prove the assassination of President John F. Kennedy was a CIA operation designed to eliminate a president who threatened to dismantle the shadow government that has controlled America ever since. The evidence comes from classified CIA operational files, FBI cover-up documents, and testimony from intelligence operatives who participated in the assassination and subsequent cover-up operation. This isn't about conspiracy theories. This is about documented facts that prove the CIA committed the crime of the century and has spent 60 years murdering witnesses, destroying evidence, and lying to the American people. President Kennedy's conflict with the CIA began immediately after the Bay of Pigs invasion failure and escalated into an existential threat to the agency's power and independence. After the Bay of Pigs disaster, President Kennedy privately told close advisors that he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the winds. This statement was recorded by intelligence assets and reported to CIA leadership as a direct threat to the agency's existence. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who worked as a CIA analyst during the Kennedy administration, documented how agency leadership interpreted Kennedy's criticism as a declaration of war against the intelligence community. Mitchell preserved evidence showing that CIA Director Allen Dulles and senior operatives viewed Kennedy's reform efforts as an existential threat that required extreme measures to prevent the destruction of the agency. Kennedy's threats against the CIA coincided with his efforts to withdraw from Vietnam, end the Cold War through negotiations with the Soviet Union, and reduce the influence of military-industrial interests that depended on CIA operations for profits. Mitchell documented how CIA leadership developed contingency plans for executive action against Kennedy if his reform efforts threatened critical agency operations and relationships. The planning began as theoretical exercises in removing political threats, but evolved into operational assessments of methods, timing, and cover-up strategies for eliminating the Kennedy presidency. When Mitchell attempted to report concerns about executive action planning, she was told that discussing theoretical operations could compromise national security and result in prosecution for unauthorized disclosure. The CIA's plan to assassinate President Kennedy was based on Operation Northwoods, a previously approved false flag operation that provided the operational framework for eliminating political threats through staged attacks. Colonel Robert Hayes, who worked in military intelligence coordination with the CIA, documented how Operation Northwoods established precedents and methodologies for conducting false flag operations against American targets to achieve political objectives. Hayes preserved evidence showing that the Northwoods framework was adapted for use against President Kennedy, including the creation of false narratives, the elimination of witnesses, and the coordination of cover-up operations. The Kennedy assassination operation used Northwoods principles, including the creation of a false perpetrator, Lee Harvey Oswald, the elimination of the actual operational team, and the coordination of media and law enforcement narratives to support the false flag cover story. Hayes documented how CIA operatives involved in Northwoods planning were reassigned to Kennedy-related operations in the months before the assassination, suggesting direct operational continuity between the two operations. The adaptation of Northwoods' methodology for domestic use against the president represented an unprecedented escalation of CIA operations against American political targets. When Hayes attempted to report connections between Northwoods and Kennedy assassination planning, he was told that discussing classified operations could constitute treason and result in military prosecution. The CIA assembled a professional assassination team using operatives with experience in foreign executive action operations and plausible deniability for domestic operations. Agent Michael Foster, who worked in CIA operational planning, documented how the Kennedy assassination team was recruited from operatives with experience in foreign assassination operations, including those involved in eliminating foreign political leaders. Foster preserved evidence showing that team members were selected based on their demonstrated ability to conduct assassination operations, maintain operational security, and eliminate witnesses to protect operational integrity. The assassination team included shooters with military sniper training, operational coordinators with experience in complex false flag operations, and intelligence operatives responsible for creating and maintaining cover stories. Foster documented how team coordination occurred through compartmentalized communication systems that prevented any single operative from understanding the complete operational plan while ensuring coordinated execution. The team assembly process included psychological evaluation to ensure operatives would maintain operational security under interrogation and eliminate loose ends that could compromise the operation. When Foster attempted to expose the recruitment and coordination of assassination operatives, he was told that discussing personnel operations could compromise ongoing intelligence activities and national security. Harvey Oswald was recruited and manipulated by the CIA as a false flag perpetrator designed to provide cover for the actual assassination operation while creating a lone gunman narrative. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, who worked in CIA asset management, documented how Harvey Oswald was developed as a CIA asset through psychological manipulation, false identity creation, and operational training disguised as ideological indoctrination. Walsh preserved evidence showing that Oswald's apparent defection to the Soviet Union was a CIA operation designed to create a pro-communist profile that could be used to explain his assassination of President Kennedy. Oswald's CIA handlers provided him with false political materials, arranged his employment in strategic locations, and coordinated his activities to create a documentary trail that would support the lone gunman narrative after Kennedy's assassination. Walsh documented how Oswald was manipulated through psychological operations to believe he was participating in intelligence activities while actually being prepared as a disposable asset for the assassination operation. The patsy preparation included placing Oswald in the Texas School Book Depository and ensuring his presence would be documented at the time of Kennedy's assassination, while actual shooters operated from other locations. When Walsh attempted to expose Oswald's CIA asset status, she was told that discussing asset operations could compromise national security and ongoing intelligence activities. The actual assassination of President Kennedy involved multiple professional shooters positioned in locations that provided triangulated fire, while Oswald served as a diversionary target in the book depository. Agent Lisa Park, who worked in CIA operational coordination, documented how professional assassination operatives were positioned in strategic locations around Dealey Plaza to ensure multiple kill shots while creating confusion about shooter locations. Park preserved evidence showing that shooters were positioned on the grassy knoll in the Daltex building and in storm drain locations that provided clear sightlines to the presidential motorcade route. The shooting operation used triangulated fire from multiple locations to ensure Kennedy's death while creating ballistic evidence that could be manipulated to support the lone gunman narrative. Park documented how the shooting sequence was coordinated to provide killing shots from professional operatives, while ballistic evidence from Oswald's location would be planted to support the cover story. The operational plan included timing coordination to ensure Kennedy was eliminated while avoiding detection of the actual shooter locations and operational team. When Park attempted to report multiple shooter coordination, she was told that discussing operational details could compromise national security and ongoing intelligence activities. The CIA implemented a systematic witness elimination program that murdered over 100 people with knowledge of Kennedy assassination details to maintain operational security and cover up integrity. Colonel David Chen, who worked in CIA counterintelligence, documented how witnesses to Kennedy assassination planning, execution, and cover-up activities were systematically eliminated through staged accidents, apparent suicides, and random crimes. Chen preserved evidence showing that witness elimination operations were coordinated through CIA operational channels and included both direct participants and innocent bystanders who observed suspicious activities. The witness elimination program extended for decades after Kennedy's assassination, targeting journalists, researchers, government officials, and private citizens who discovered evidence that threatened the official lone gunman narrative. Chen documented how witness elimination operations used the same methodologies as foreign assassination operations, including staged accidents, poisoning, and elimination techniques that avoided obvious evidence of murder. The systematic nature of witness elimination proved that Kennedy's assassination was an ongoing operation rather than a single event, requiring continuous security measures to maintain cover-up integrity. When Chen attempted to expose witness elimination operations, he was told that discussing counterintelligence activities could compromise national security and ongoing operations. The Warren Commission was designed and controlled by CIA operatives to ensure that the official investigation would support the lone gunman narrative while suppressing evidence of CIA involvement. Attorney Patricia Williams, who worked in Justice Department coordination with intelligence agencies, documented how the Warren Commission was populated with CIA assets and individuals who could be controlled through blackmail or financial incentives. Williams preserved evidence showing that commission staff members were CIA operatives or CIA-controlled individuals who ensured that investigation procedures would support predetermined conclusions rather than objective fact-finding. The Warren Commission operated under CIA-designed protocols that classified critical evidence, limited witness testimony, and suppressed ballistic analysis that contradicted the lone gunman narrative. Williams documented how commission procedures were designed to create the appearance of thorough investigation while actually preventing discovery of evidence that would expose CIA involvement in Kennedy's assassination. The commission's predetermined conclusions were written before the investigation was completed, demonstrating that the entire process was designed to legitimize a false narrative rather than determine the truth. When Williams attempted to expose Warren Commission manipulation, she was told that discussing commission operations could compromise national security and judicial processes. The CIA coordinated with major media organizations to ensure that coverage of Kennedy's assassination supported the lone gunman narrative while suppressing investigative reporting that might expose CIA involvement. Marcus Rodriguez, who worked as a media liaison for intelligence agencies, documented systematic coordination between CIA operatives and major news organizations to control coverage of Kennedy assassination investigations. Rodriguez preserved communications showing that news organizations received specific guidance about which aspects of the assassination to investigate, which sources to quote, and which theories to promote or discredit. The media coordination included suppression of journalistic investigations that discovered evidence contradicting the official narrative, intimidation of reporters who pursued CIA connections, and promotion of stories that supported lone gunman conclusions. Rodriguez documented how media coordination continued for decades after Kennedy's assassination, ensuring that anniversary coverage and historical documentaries maintained the official narrative while discrediting alternative theories. The systematic media control demonstrated that Kennedy assassination cover-up was an ongoing operation requiring continuous information warfare to maintain public acceptance of false narratives. When Rodriguez attempted to expose media coordination with intelligence agencies, he was told that discussing media relationships could compromise national security and intelligence operations. The CIA coordinated with organized crime figures to provide additional operational support for Kennedy's assassination while creating alternative suspects that could be used to divert attention from CIA involvement. Agent Amanda Foster, who worked in CIA organized crime liaison, documented how agency operatives coordinated with mafia figures who had their own motives for eliminating President Kennedy due to his administration's organized crime prosecutions. Foster preserved evidence showing that organized crime figures provided operational support, weapons, and additional shooters for the Kennedy assassination, while expecting protection from federal prosecution in exchange for their cooperation. The CIA-Mafia coordination created mutual benefits by eliminating Kennedy's threat to both organizations, while providing the CIA with alternative suspects and narratives that could be used to divert attention from intelligence community involvement. Foster documented how organized crime figures were manipulated by CIA operatives who used mafia involvement to create additional layers of plausible deniability and alternative theories that would confuse assassination investigations. The coordination demonstrated how the CIA used criminal organizations as operational assets, while maintaining the ability to blame those same organizations if cover-up operations failed. When Foster attempted to expose CIA mafia coordination, she was told that discussing organized crime operations could compromise ongoing law enforcement activities and national security. Vice President Lyndon Johnson was informed of CIA assassination plans and cooperated with operational coordination to ensure his succession to the presidency and protection of CIA interests. Dr. Robert Hayes, who worked in government transition planning, documented how Lyndon Johnson was briefed on Kennedy assassination planning and coordinated with CIA operatives to ensure smooth transition of presidential authority. Hayes preserved evidence showing that Johnson's activities on November 22, 1963, were coordinated with assassination operational timing to ensure he would be in position to assume presidential authority immediately after Kennedy's elimination. Johnson's participation in the Kennedy assassination included appointing Warren Commission members selected by CIA operatives, suppressing investigative activities that threatened to expose CIA involvement, and using presidential authority to classify evidence. Hayes documented how Johnson used presidential powers to protect CIA operatives involved in Kennedy's assassination, while ensuring that official investigations would support predetermined conclusions rather than objective fact-finding. Johnson's complicity was essential to assassination success because presidential authority was required to coordinate government-wide cover-up activities and suppress investigations that threatened operational security. When Hayes attempted to expose Johnson's coordination with assassination operatives, he was told that discussing presidential transition activities could compromise national security and executive authority. President Kennedy's foreign policy decisions threatened CIA operations worldwide and financial interests that depended on military-industrial complex profits from ongoing conflicts and interventions. Kennedy's decision to withdraw from Vietnam threatened CIA operations, military contractor profits, and intelligence community influence that depended on ongoing conflict and intervention operations. Intelligence documents show that Kennedy's National Security Action Memorandum 263 ordering Vietnam withdrawal was seen by CIA and military leadership as a fundamental threat to American strategic interests and intelligence operations. Kennedy's efforts to establish peaceful relations with the Soviet Union through direct communication and negotiation threatened CIA operations that depended on Cold War tensions and conflicts. The intelligence community viewed Kennedy's peace initiatives as naive and dangerous policies that would eliminate justification for intelligence operations and military spending that supported shadow government power. Kennedy's refusal to support CIA operations against Cuba, including assassination attempts against Fidel Castro, demonstrated his unwillingness to support intelligence community objectives that conflicted with his foreign policy goals. CIA operatives interpreted Kennedy's Cuba policies as betrayal of intelligence community interests and evidence that he could not be trusted to support essential intelligence operations. Kennedy's domestic policy agenda threatened financial and political interests that formed the foundation of shadow government power and CIA operational independence. Kennedy's Executive Order 11,110, authorizing the Treasury to issue silver certificates, threatened Federal Reserve control over monetary policy and financial interests that supported shadow government operations. Intelligence community analysis viewed Kennedy's monetary policies as threats to financial structures that provided funding and political support for intelligence operations and shadow government activities. Kennedy's efforts to reduce defense spending and limit military-industrial complex influence threatened contractors and financial interests that provided resources for intelligence operations and shadow government activities. CIA leadership understood that Kennedy's domestic policies would eliminate financial support systems that enabled intelligence community independence from congressional oversight and democratic accountability. Following Kennedy's assassination, the CIA consolidated power through intimidation, elimination of threats, and expansion of shadow government control over American political institutions. The successful assassination of President Kennedy demonstrated CIA capability to eliminate political threats and established precedents for intelligence community control over political processes and government operations. Intelligence community power expanded dramatically after Kennedy's assassination, as political leaders understood the consequences of opposing CIA interests and shadow government objectives. The CIA continued elimination operations against political figures who threatened intelligence community interests, including Martin Luther King Jr., Robert Kennedy, and other leaders who challenged shadow government power. The systematic elimination of political threats created a climate of fear that prevented effective opposition to intelligence community operations and shadow government control over American institutions. For 60 years, the CIA has maintained active cover-up operations to suppress evidence of Kennedy assassination planning while eliminating witnesses and researchers who threatened to expose the truth. Current intelligence operations include systematic disinformation campaigns designed to discredit Kennedy assassination researchers while promoting false theories that divert attention from CIA involvement. The continuing cover-up demonstrates that Kennedy's assassination remains an active operation, requiring ongoing security measures to protect operatives and maintain false narratives. CIA continues to destroy and classify evidence related to Kennedy's assassination, while preventing release of documents that would expose intelligence community involvement in the operation. The systematic destruction of evidence proves that CIA has ongoing operational interests in maintaining Kennedy assassination cover-up rather than allowing historical truth to emerge. The CIA assassination of President Kennedy represents the fundamental destruction of constitutional government through intelligence community elimination of democratic accountability and civilian control over government operations. Kennedy's assassination proved that intelligence agencies could eliminate elected officials who threatened their interests while maintaining power through fear and intimidation of surviving political leaders. The elimination of democratic accountability created permanent intelligence community control over American political processes and government operations outside constitutional constraints. The successful assassination established permanent shadow government control over American institutions through intelligence community networks that operate outside democratic oversight and constitutional limitations. Constitutional government cannot exist when intelligence agencies have demonstrated capability and willingness to eliminate elected officials who challenge their authority and operational independence. The CIA networks responsible for Kennedy's assassination remain active and continue to eliminate threats to shadow government control over American political institutions and government operations. Current intelligence indicates that CIA assassination capabilities have expanded and improved since Kennedy's elimination, making contemporary political leaders even more vulnerable to intelligence community threats. The networks established for Kennedy's assassination continue to operate against political figures who threaten intelligence, community interests, and shadow government control over American institutions. Contemporary CIA elimination operations use more sophisticated methods, including staged accidents, medical interventions, and cyber attacks that provide better operational security than traditional assassination techniques. The evolution of elimination capabilities ensures that modern political leaders face greater threats from intelligence community operations while having fewer protections against sophisticated assassination methods. 60 years after President Kennedy's assassination, justice requires full exposure of CIA involvement and accountability for the intelligence community operatives who murdered the president and maintained decades of cover-up operations. The evidence I've presented tonight proves that the CIA assassinated President John F. Kennedy and has spent 60 years murdering witnesses, destroying evidence, and lying to the American people. Traditional law enforcement and judicial institutions have been captured by intelligence community networks and cannot provide accountability for Kennedy's assassination or ongoing cover-up operations. Constitutional justice requires citizen action to demand full disclosure of Kennedy assassination evidence while holding intelligence community operatives accountable for murder and treason against the United States. Every American must choose between accepting permanent intelligence community control through murder and intimidation or demanding justice for the assassination of their president. President John F. Kennedy was murdered by the CIA because he threatened to destroy the shadow government that has controlled America for 60 years. The same intelligence networks that killed Kennedy continue to eliminate political threats while maintaining power through fear, intimidation, and systematic elimination of opposition. I've presented classified evidence proving that your government has been controlled by murderers who eliminated the last president who challenged their authority. 60 years of lies, cover-ups, and murder cannot continue without accountability for the intelligence community operatives who destroyed constitutional government through presidential assassination. Justice for President Kennedy requires exposing the truth about his assassination and holding the CIA accountable for the crime of the century. Constitutional government will only survive if Americans demand justice for the president who died trying to protect democracy from the shadow government that murdered him. This is Director James Morrison. The CIA killed President Kennedy 60 years ago and has controlled America through murder and fear ever since. The question is, when will Americans demand justice for their murdered president?